Right now, David Byrne joins me in Studio Q. Hello.
Hello, good to be here.
So color guard, for my compatriots who might not know what that is, it's a really interesting mix of gymnastics, military marching, dance elements. It's competitive art as well.
Mm-hmm.
Really interesting history when I was digging into it and how it's evolved into what it is today. As a Canadian, it seems very American, almost exotically American. How did it strike you when you first came across it?
It struck me as being this kind of vernacular art form that exists all across the continent, and it is Canadian too. Two of the teams are Canadian.
Cool.
The team I'm working with, and the one that Nellie's working with.
Okay.
No surprise there. And I saw all this creativity going into it because what has happened is it's evolved. There's a kind of branch of it that's evolved past the kind of marching band football halftime stuff, where it's become this very expressive thing where they take on issues, where they mix in kind of contemporary dance and costumes and kind of sets and all these other things kind of come into it. You just go, how are they coming up with this stuff? Where is this coming from? And it's coming from out there, and it's kind of under the radar or outside the radar or beyond the radar of the kind of the normal kind of cultural gatekeepers. But there's a lot of creativity going on, and I thought, let's see if there's a way to bring this in and kind of match it up with something a completely different world, the world that I know a little bit.
Yeah. In particular, as a New Yorker, did it strike you that it wasn't in the big culture press there? You mentioned that it's flown under the radar.
Yeah, it struck me that you'd never see it, say, reviewed in the New York Times. You might see it reviewed, say, in a regional paper in Alberta or something, but in Toronto, I don't think so.
You mentioned really quickly that they take on issues sometimes.
Yeah, one of the they call them programs. So one of the routines one of the teams is doing on our show is about disappeared children and how prevalent that is, and how they're taking on some serious dark themes and dancing around and kind of tossing rifles and sabers as part of it, which sometimes seems a little inappropriate when it's that kind of theme.
Yeah.
They don't necessarily see it that way. They see it as just the rifles and sabers are just part of what they do, and it has to be incorporated because it's part of their competition. You always have to show how many, saber tosses or whatever you can do. So that's even if you take on a serious theme like disappeared children.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or there was I can't remember some of the other ones. You go, wait a minute. Yeah. Well, okay, we won't get there. There's another one.
That's part of the history, though, right?
That's part of the history of it. So the history is kind of stays in there, but they take on kind of serious subjects and then stuff that's a lot of fun. There's another one that has a theme of Hitchcock, and so it has scenes from Psycho and Vertigo and all this stuff integrated in it, which is kind of not what you would normally see in a halftime show.
I find that historical element so interesting because it makes this interesting representation culturally, because it still has those elements, those militaristic elements, but it's very creative, sometimes very fun, as you said. What do you think it represents about U.S. culture? I mean, it's in Canada too, but...
It is. Yeah. I think what it represents is, for me, it's very hopeful because it says that there's a lot of creativity out there. There's a need for folks to express themselves, and boy, do they ever! And the amount of time and effort and seriously blood and sweat and tears that goes into it is just unbelievable. It's not something people just do for an hour on the weekends or whatever like this. They are, if it's high school kids, they're, getting through their homework as fast as they can and then just spending hours and hours practicing this stuff. It's very open. You have to be able to do some of the gymnastics or whatever.
Very physical.
It's very physical, but they don't seem to discriminate as far as gender, race, body types, whatever. There's all kinds of kids in it, which is all really kind of amazing too. I mean, a lot of things you can go, okay, there's only a certain kind of person that's going to be a football player.
Yeah.
But in this case, it seems fairly welcoming.
Why do you think it's flown under the radar culturally?
Oh, it's one of those things where you can just imagine New Yorkers like me. It's the kind of thing we might like look down our noses at, and where I'm totally ready for somebody to say to me, "You're not really serious about this, are you? You don't really believe that this is actually something good and creative." And I say, no, take a look. I mean, they're not all as good. Not everyone is as good as another, but there's really something going on out there.
Is that part of what struck you about it that made you want to make art with it?
Yeah, I thought that, coming from the world that I come from, I thought, well, if you put some cool music and some cool bands and singers and stuff next to it, that would bring it to a different audience, but would also put a spin on it. Where people would hear it perceive it in a different way. If you put some really cool music to something, you look at it in a different way. So I thought, this kind of benefits both sides.
Yeah.
And the musical act gets this kind of visual spectacle that goes, that they could never recreate on stage.
Yeah.
Just instantly happening as part of their show.
It made me reflect on that Guardian article that we talk about before we got on here, and you're talking about New York and how it's changing, how it's becoming a very elite in terms of money sort of place. And there's actually a quote in there where you say, "We have the museums, but we don't have the culture." And in my mind, I said, I wonder if this is kind of inspiring this project.
Well, maybe in a way.
I'm guessing at your psychology here.
Yeah, in a way, yeah. My feeling has generally been that, you find culture wherever it is, in whatever place, and you shouldn't be defined. It shouldn't be defined by kind of New York critics or whatever that. And although that there's a place for criticism, but I feel like there's. Wherever it happens, it should be celebrated.
Yeah.
And there's a lot going on that gets ignored, underappreciated, not taken seriously, all that kind of thing. And okay, that if that can be addressed a little bit, it kind of they don't actually need it. They're like the color guard kids or whatever. They have a big audience out there. There's a lot of people go to see it, so it's not like they're hurting, or that they desperately need to reach out and find a new audience. So like when I first approached them, it was like, what? Do we really want to take a step into the unknown here and risk whatever.
Yeah.
But now they've all seemed to kind of embrace it. I think they realize that this is going to bring their sport of the arts to a completely different audience.
And I love the spirit of fun that's there too. I mean, you describe it as a glitter cannon of a show or something.
Yes,
there's that.
There's. I think we're not allowed to use a glitter cannon, but we can use a mylar cannon.
Yeah.
Which is
people hate sweeping up glitter.
Yes. Yeah. I'm sorry. Yes, but it does make for a pretty spectacular ending.
Yeah. And that sense of fun and theatricality has always been a part of what you do. From contemporary color to Talking Heads, of course.
Mm-hmm.
What is it about that visual interpretation that excites you?
Well, it didn't start from this, but I've come to realize, hey, you can't download this. You have to be there. I mean, you can take pictures and phone videos and everything like this, and
unfortunately,
you can do all that, which is it's part of the experience now.
Yeah.
When you go out, it's part of the experience. Is like telling your friends where you're at and them showing you what they're doing and all that, and that's part of it.
Yeah.
showing everybody what you're having for dinner, but it doesn't replace the experience of being there, which is part of that whole social thing. Like, I'm here, I'm experiencing this now.
Yeah. Was that always driving it though? That experience of this is going to be, people are going to be present in this thing if there's this theatrical visual element to it.
No, I mean, that aspect is kind of new. I think before that, I was thinking purely from my own point of view. Like, when I go to see something, if it's in an intimate club, I don't mind if it's just somebody playing their music and singing and there's no visual aspect.
Yeah.
You're looking at their face and kind of the emotions and what's going on their face.
Yeah.
But as soon as you get into a larger theater, you go, now I need a little bit of help here.
Yeah.
I need a little something to look at some of the time.
Does that create some challenges on the musical side, though? You know, once the visual gets bigger.
Yeah, and sometimes it can be a thing, and maybe it's just me. I mean, some musicians feel like, no, you don't need that. This is my music.
Yeah.
I don't want it overshadowed by something else. I don't want it to have people looking at video screens instead of listening to what I'm doing.
Yeah.
That's all true.
Did you ever have the sense that there's something that you can't express through your songs that you can't express visually? Was that ever an inspiration?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's you might try and write a song about what's the next phase of what's happening with the CERN particle accelerator, but that'd be pretty hard to do. I mean, you could do it, but no guarantee that that's going to be a really good song.
Yeah.
But there's some things that might be better kind of on the written page, or some things as a photograph, some things as a song.
Yeah.
Yes, and there's, I think we've all been to things where we go, okay, that was really good, but it should have been, instead of being whatever, a live performance or something, it should have been a TV show. Or where, you sometimes think
it's the wrong medium.
It was the wrong medium for what that is.
Yeah. Going back to the start of Talking Heads, you guys wore uniforms. Am I correct? Right.
Sometimes, yeah.
Sometimes from the start. Why was that so important? The uniforms.
Well, it was a kind of. I just thought it was admitting that that we all kind of wear. We all wear stuff that kind of identifies as what we think we want to represent. That we're wearing, even if it looks like we're not wearing some kind of uniform or costume, we are.
Yeah.
And it kind of says to the world, oh, this is what I am, and this is who I hang out with. This is the kind of what I believe in. And it kind of tells you that. So I thought, oh, okay, let's just admit it.
There's right now in indie rock especially, there's this sort of come as you are like aesthetic, which is what makes the show that you're about to put on such a dramatic change, in terms of the theatricality. What do you think of that come as you are aesthetic?
You mean just wear your street clothes?
Yeah, wear your street clothes versus a bigger visual interpretation.
I think it's totally fine, but I think wearing your street clothes is a decision, and it's a costume. Yeah. It's a uniform as much as anything else. Yeah. You just have to admit that it is and relax with it and go with it. But I've tried this. I've tried to say I want to wear something that doesn't say anything, and you can't. Everything says something.
How are these bands involved with this project, responding to the theatricality and the bigness of it?
That we will find out. We will find out.
In the preparation.
In the preparation, I think it starts off with the kind of material they're doing, which I think they're responding that way. They're kind of imagining what it'll be like with all this stuff going on all around them. I'm also imagining that it takes a little bit of the weight off the musical performers to be visual.
Yeah.
They have to put out a kind of passionate performance, but they don't have to be the visual entertainment.
Yeah.
That comes from the team.
And that's a big weight off for sure.
Yeah, they don't have to like run around the stage or do all this stuff. They just have to give a really good performance because the team is going to add the visual element.
Now, in the current economy of music that you've written about, it's harder to do those bigger shows for a lot of artists coming up. You've written about that. You've commented on that. What effect do you think that's having on the general caliber of entertainment that's out there?
Well, right now I think there's, as there probably always will be, there'll always be people who love music. There's kind of more kids who want to make music in some way or shape or form than ever before, which is kind of extraordinary because it's kind of like, well, you kind of want to say, make sure you have a plan B.
Because there's so many.
There's so many.
Yeah.
And it's kind of harder than ever to make a living doing it.
Yeah.
It hasn't gotten easier. It's gotten easier to make the music. You can post it, distribute it, do all that kind of stuff in your own way. No guarantee that anybody's going to find it or hear it, but you can actually, in some ways, get it out there and make it, which is a big thing.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to interfere with your music. You can do it exactly how you imagine it. That's kind of incredible because you used to be like somebody was always kind of looking over your shoulder and going, you got to make it a little more commercial. You got to do this or that. Mm-hmm. But now kind of like making a living off of it is kind of, that's the thing. But I'm kind of optimistic. I think there's kind of a rising tide of musicians, not just in the U.S., but in Europe. I just had a very long meeting with a group of Brazilian artists. Mm-hmm. We're all dealing with exactly the same things, and of who's siphoning off the money that's coming in there, that it doesn't come to any of us anymore, which doesn't matter so much for me. I'm kind of established. I can do these projects and shows. But for younger musicians who are kind of trying to claw their way up to a place where they can pay rent, it's pretty hard.
What makes you so passionate about those artists at that stage in their career? Not a lot of people
that's where the future is going to be. I mean, I might be dead and gone, but I mean, if you want music to go on, you have to nurture the talent that's coming up.
You've written that was a sort of art that inspired you.
Exactly.
It wasn't this sort of high, kind of top of the pop charts.
Yeah, I mean, I liked some of the top chart stuff when I was younger, but I also, after that, your friend tips you off to something, go, but now check out this. It's a little more unusual, and then you go, whoa, okay, that's telling me about a part of life or a way of life or a part of the world I didn't know anything about.
Yeah.
And you go, kids coming up now should have that same experience. It's and they still do, but I'm not trying to say that, it's gone or anything. I'm just saying you want to make sure that it's a life-changing experience when you first discover stuff that opens up a new world to you.
I want to go back to color guard as a folk art or vernacular, as you described it. Do you think there's a growing divide? Now, you said that it's not covered in, say, New York magazines or Toronto Star or something like that. Do you think that divide is growing? There's always been a high-low sort of like folk and city divide, but have you seen it grow over time?
Not so much. I've seen as traditional print journalism has struggled to kind of survive. I've seen the number of critics and writers about music or theater or film or whatever kind of be reduced. So there's fewer reviews. Yeah. But then you get reviews on kind of the music websites, and it kind of appears somewhere else. Yeah. You have to kind of poke around a little bit more to discover stuff or find out what's interesting. But no, I think it's all still there. But there's also a feeling. There's always been a feeling that there are areas out there that are unexplored, untapped, unappreciated.
Have you always been interested in these different worlds and bringing them closer together?
Yeah. Yeah.
So you worked in opera, film, and now color guard as well. What do you want to explore next?
Well, there's stuff that's in the works. It's going to take a long time. I have a project where I'm kind of working with a lot of neuroscience labs, so it's kind of going into
Wow.
science, but it also will involve the public. But that's kind of long range. But
Okay. I'll ask
that's
you about that
that's where
off
I'm
air,
going
but-
next week. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.